Okay, welcome back. So this is module number 6, which is going to be introducing us and taking us through Intune administration and device compliance. So very interesting topic. Very interesting in the sense that we get to use this service in our everyday life with all the websites and applications and services that we use online, because it's ingrained in every service. It's ingrained in most web applications that we use today, including Google and everything that is related. So what is Intune administration and device compliance? In this video, that's what we're going to be discussing, and the concepts that we work around Intune, and the benefits of using it and how it works, breaking those things down into simpler terms that we can understand, and have a foundation of what Intune administration is all about. Okay, so we're going to start by defining what Microsoft Intune is, so that we are on the same page. So Microsoft Intune is a cloud-based device control system. It is what? It is a cloud-based device control system. So it's a device control system. Yes, it's a device control system. Okay, so now let's relate this to what we are doing in our project, so we can understand. So what I want you to have here is the idea that Intune is a system for controlling devices, right? So now let's get into it. So medical health tech is a healthcare SaaS company. We keep on repeating that, and this is going to explain why we need Intune in this company, right? Or why Intune is a necessity for different other companies, right? We're using medical as an example. So now, when you look at this particular company, you see something happen, right? You see that we have different types of people here. We have people who are internal, which are called doctors and nurses, and then we have people who are contractors, which are people that come regularly to do jobs or tasks or projects for a period of time, and then they leave the company. So that gives us two types of personality of people that we have in the company. Now, the other thing that we see in this company is that they have requirements to fulfill, right? So compliance requirements, that's your HIPAA, that's your GDPR, that's your NHS, right? So why does Intune exist? So Intune exists to do those things, right? One, it makes the company compliant. Why? Because what are those compliant requirements is that the device has to also be trusted. Remember, we said zero trust, and we said user name and password is something that is used to trust a login, right? Trust somebody that they should have access to something, right? But we're now taking it a step further, and we say, well, what about the device, right? Because we just want to make sure everything is extremely secure. So if we can check the identity, which is the person, and then if we can check the device, then we have 2 points of catching the hacker. Now, is this device safe? Because password alone are not enough. Even MFA sometimes is not enough, right? These people get wiser with time, and they may breach through the MFA, right? So what after that? Within what? So then that's why we need to check the device. What is to check the device? To check the device is, we know that a device has to meet certain standards, or has to have certain tasks, certain applications for us to say this device is secure. That is something we know, right? So one of the examples is, we know that having a password on the computer secures the computer. We also know that having device encryption secures the data on the device. We also know that having an antivirus on the device secures the device, right? Those are 3 things that I'm just giving as an example. So now, those things, how do we make sure that each device has those things that I just mentioned, right? How do we make sure that each device has an antivirus? How do we make sure that each device is safe, basically? So that's when we have to do this by going to each device and then assessing, does this device has an antivirus? Oh yeah, it does. Does it not? Okay, install an antivirus. Well, that's manual work. That's what people used to do back in the day, right? So that's going to take a lot of administrative effort when you bring in the fact that there's a lot of computers to be dealt with, right? That even becomes expensive in terms of manpower. So then Intune is the reason. So what does Intune do? It basically checks the things that I've said and it makes sure those things are in place. So what does that look like? It looks like the device does not have an antivirus solution. So what Intune is going to do is going to mark that device uncompliant until it gets an antivirus solution. And what else does it check? Right? It's going to check if the device is a firewall. So we know that all computers should have a firewall. So if the firewall is on or off, right? If the firewall is off on the device, then we know that that device is not compliant until the firewall is turned on. Okay? So that's number one, why Intune is used. Right? So now, once we now have all of those things in place, then we can say, well, this device has passed the test and it has everything that we deem to be the guardrails or the protection that protects the device, then we give that device access. So if you look at this image, it's basically saying the same thing. Entra ID that we've been looking at, it looks at who you are, right? Who are you? It's me. Okay, cool. Now, Intune looks at what device you're using. Is it safe? Then conditional access is the one that's going to come at this point. This is very important. It's a very important diagram, right? So first thing that happened, Intune ID checks the user account. We've already done that. Now, then next thing goes to Intune checks the device is the device, and if the device is the device as well as is it safe. Once that passes, the conditional access checks these two, and then it gives access to a result. So Entra ID is the brain, but Intune is the body check. So it just checks the body, right? Like, do you have everything that you're supposed to be having, right? And conditional access is what decides. Did you meet? Is Intune happy with you? Yes. Is Entra ID happy with you? Yes. Okay, then you can come in. That's what conditional access policies do. Now, when we go with it, I'm just gonna go and show you this image, so we can jump to something called mobile device management. Mobile device management. So normally, mobile device management is represented as MDM. Okay, so whenever you see MDM in job posts, know that it's talking about what we're learning right now. It's basically device control, right? It allows the company to enroll a device in Intune. When we say enroll, we're just basically saying a register. In fact, we're not really saying register, but we're saying enrolling. So you register, then you enroll in a class, okay? And it allows us to set rules, right? And it allows us to check the security settings and everything. And it allows us to push settings as well and remove access if rules are broken. So think of MDM like a hospital badge scanner, right? So the badge is the identity, and then the device is the body compliant, right? And then if there's no compliance, then there's no entry. Okay, so MDM is just mobile device management. It's the holistic word that is describing what Intune is capable of doing, or what is device control basically. Okay, so we have a word that's called auto enrollment. So when you see it, just know that it means a user signs into a Windows computer or any computer, and then automatically that device is enrolled into Intune. All right. So that's what. So there's enrollment. So enrollment, like I said, is registering the device with Intune, so Intune can start doing what we have designed it to do on that particular device, right? And then we know that this needs to be done manually. So there's also a place called auto enrollment, where somebody just signs in and then the device is just pulled and everything gets installed on the device, right? So those are the terms that I want you to understand. and enrollment exists, right? So when you enroll a device, you're basically saying also that I belong to this particular company and I accept its rules, right? So without enrollment, it cannot see your device, right? It cannot enforce those rules we're talking about. It cannot have conditional access, trust the device. All right. So those things are what's making up MDM. And auto enrollment, as I was saying, when a user signs into the Windows computer, automatically they are enrolled into the Intune, right? So this happens with devices that we know that the device is going to belong to this particular company. And auto enrollment is there because if there's too many employees and contractors, as you can see, it becomes difficult to do manual enrollment. What we end up doing, again, to just explain it more again so you can understand it, is that what we do is that we just say, well, we know these devices and we know the users. So what we're going to do is set up auto enrollment, and we make these users sign into their computers using their Intune email addresses. And once they do that, then that device starts to get enrolled. I don't need to go there physically and start doing the installation. Cool. Then we jump to something called device categories or device ownership, right? So device ownership, which is basically who is the owner of this device. So remember, we have two categories of workers at medical, and one of them is employees, the other one is contractors, for example. So the contractors are not going to get company computers, right? They're going to bring their own devices to work. So, and the employees, they will get corporate devices. So these are two different things. So who owns the device is very important when we are about to use an MDM solution like Intune. So that gives birth to corporate devices and gives birth to something called bring your own devices, which is BYOD. So automatically, device ownership allows us to categorize devices and apply different sets of rules to each category. So what does that mean? That means if it's employees, I am going to be more strict, right, with my policies, because the company, the employee does not have to play with the computer, right? For example, the installation of some unrelated software to the company computer is prohibited, right? But if it's your computer, you might say, well, I got this thing that I do on the side and I don't want you to remove it. So the set of policies that are going to apply to those two different categories are going to be different. That's why we have device ownership. Every time a device is enrolled, it has to be marked by who is owning it. Is it the company or is it a BYOD? And who the person who sets that up is you. All right, so yeah, just like I was saying, they exist for the correct policies, so for correct applications, for correct restrictions, right? And then we have this other concept called dynamic device groups, which is very great. And remember, everything is to do with automation now. So when you look at these things, I want you to remember that this was used to be done manually. So what is device dynamic groups, or what is dynamic groups in general? So dynamic groups are groups that going to join people, join members based on a set of attributes, right? So, for example, we know that we created a group and then we had to go and manually add people to that group, right? That's cool, but that's again a lot of administration. What if we could create a group that automatically adds people to the group? Why is this important? In situations where there is high onboarding, there are companies that does high onboarding, right? Like, for example, I once worked for, not worked for, but it was one of my clients, a mortgage company, right? This mortgage company, what they're doing is they make money off employing more brokers and more people. So basically their business concept is more people, right? So it was tough for everybody that's being joined, and every day you have to go and set that person up and set that person up. What if you create a group that dynamically add those people to the group based on the category, right? So now the person marks the device to be Corporate, automatically, if I know that the device is corporate, I don't need to go and add it to a corporate group. I can create a dynamic group that's going to just add that device to a group. So remember, there are groups for devices and then there are groups for users. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to mention as well. All right, so now in this instance, we're going to have dynamic device groups help us to automate the process of adding devices to groups based on the category. Cool. They don't just work, they work for different kinds of things. I mean, you can have a dynamic group that's just including nurses. Each time a person is created with an attribute called nurse in job description, then that person is automatically added to a nurse group. So dynamic groups, amazing. Please go and learn more about them, right? Because it's not just about this video. This is what I'll keep on repeating, right? This video is just a number of minutes, but you need to go and then find out more about what dynamics groups are. There's ChatGPT, there's so many resources, right? Just to expand your knowledge, and also read the cookbook. So those are the three things. And then we have things called device limits and restrictions. So device limits and restrictions basically means we have, so here's the flow. The person gets a user identity. What is a user identity? The user account, right? Or the employee get a user account. That's the first thing that needs to happen. The second thing that needs to happen, that person has to have devices that's going to have company data. Now, how many devices can we allow that person to have? Now, remember, Intune or MDM is applied to all devices that access company data. Let me repeat that. Intune or mobile device management is applied to all the devices that's going to access company data. So what does that mean? It means even your phone, as long as emails are going to go on your phone, as long as Teams is going to go on your phone, as long as all of those things that has company data going to go on your phone, that device has to be enrolled in Intune. Why? Because HIPAA wants it. Why? Because that's secure, right? So how many devices can we allow a person to join? So that's also something to look at. So the number that usually most people use is 5. So you are allowed to register 5 devices. That people who have a laptop that they carry around, that they use to do work, and when they get to the office, they have a desktop, and when they go home, there's another laptop, right? So all of these things have to be registered with Intune for them to be able to do work. Remember, without this registration, nobody's going to do anything. Why? Because we trust the device first. So that's what device limits is. It just means it's a number, how many devices a user can enroll, what platforms are allowed. So what is a platform? Right? It's a good question. So a platform is an operating system. What type of operating system is to be allowed? Are we going to allow MacBooks only? Are we going to allow Windows only? Are we going to allow iPhone devices only? Right? So those things are what comes into play when we're talking about device limits and restrictions. So we may restrict that we don't want to see Windows devices because the company only operates on MacBooks. Right? So if somebody is trying to enroll a Windows device, that's a security concern. Easy peasy. We also have things like versions, software versions, right? Some companies will say we just moved to Windows 11, so we don't want to see any device that has Windows 10. So what do? We have a platform restriction that only allow you to enroll Windows 11 devices. As soon as you try to enroll a Windows 10 device, the platform restriction is going to tell you that you cannot do so. You need to upgrade the system to Windows 11. Easy peasy. So now, that allows that. Let's now jump into compliant policies and configuration policies and what they mean, right? So compliant policies, these policies will look at the compliance standard of the company. So let's say you get a job in a company. So what's going to happen is they're going to tell you, listen, the auditor said all computers must have an antivirus. all computers must have a password that's secure. What is a password that's secure? At least 7 characters, right? All company computers should be registered with an MDM solution. These are requirements from compliance, right? All computers should have device encryption enforced on them. What is device encryption? We're going to look into that as we're going through the course, right? So these are the set of requirements that the standard is requiring. So now we create a policy that enforces those things. What is to enforce? To check. So a compliant policy basically goes and assess. It goes and assess if the device is meeting these things. If it does have device encryption enabled, if it does have a firewall enabled, if it does have an antivirus, right? So that policy is the thing that checks. That's what a compliant policy do. So it basically just goes and says, does this device meet this? No. Okay, mark it non-compliant. Does this device meet this? Yes. Okay, mark it compliant. Now we have configuration policies, just like the name suggests, configuration. So now we may check compliance and we find out that, okay, the device does not have a secure password, then what? Right? So when we do that, now we want to remediate that situation. So we remediate that situation by using configuration policies, which are basically this set of rules that's going to be allowed to do administrative tasks on the device automatically, right? For example, turning on the firewall is something that you can do manually on your computer, but if you forget, the policy is going to do that for you in the background, right? So your firewall is just going to be automatically turned on, right? Your antivirus is going to be automatically installed, right? The next time you try to sign in, it's going to say change your password. Why? Because your password is expired. Why? Because your password is not secure, right? And then it does that. Device encryption, for example, BitLocker. If it's not in there, what it's going to do is it's going to attempt to just start encrypting your disk, right? So that it can configure that. That's auto remediation. Now, whilst we're designing these things and we're talking about things, just remember that there's a situation where these devices are actually employee devices, like BYOD. So you want to make sure you have a balance, right? Because people are not going to like having things installed on their computers without them being told about it. Okay, anyway, so that's it. So and then conditional access is basically still the same conditional access. We check certain conditions, one of them being if a device is compliant, and then we give access. Okay, so you see that conditional access policy is going to be there again in here. So the combination of all of these policies is what gives birth to the strongest zero trust. Because now we are checking if you are who you say you are. If you are logging in from a known location. If you are using the correct multi-factor authentication device. If you are using the correct device. If your device is actually safe to access data. Right? So all of these things are happening in the background and making sure that now we do have zero trust. I hope you are tracking. In some instances, companies decide to use Intune for certain things. For example, the company could be working on a system that they don't want employees to take screenshots. For example, I've worked with different kinds of companies that had such requirements, right? The other guy wanted people to work on, he had a set of developers, so he wanted these developers to work this application or this system, this software they were developing, but he didn't trust them, or not necessarily trust them, but he just wanted security, right? So he would say, I want them to not be able to take screenshots. I want them to not be able to plug in USB devices. I want them to not be able to share data from those computers they're using, right? So how do we achieve that? Intune configuration policies is where then you enforce that the person should not be able to share data. As soon as you try to share data, there's an error to it. as soon as you try to do screenshots, there's a concept in WhatsApp that I'll give you as an example, which is that if somebody sends you a photo that is timed, or a open once photo, I don't know the exact name, right? But a picture that you can only open once, and it's supposed to be a private picture, or something that is what is it called? Is confidential, right? So what they're going to do is so if you open that picture and you attempt to take a screenshot, that one time WhatsApp is going to block you from taking the screenshot. The thing that's blocking you to take a screenshot is a configuration policy. Okay, hope that makes sense. So lastly, what we want to talk about is that there are different types of enrollments, right? We just talked about auto enrollment. Some of us know company portal enrollment, which is the most commonly used one, which is that especially for BYOD device, which is that you install an application and then you enroll the device. The other one is auto enrollment, and auto enrollment includes different types of that, which is one of them is that it's going to use the serial numbers on the device, right? So the company buys a set of computers, they get the serial numbers, they upload the serial numbers into Intune, and as soon as that laptop is powered on, is connected to the network, then Intune enrolls the device and does every setting up, installs the applications, and boom, the person can use the computer, right? So that's part of also bulk provisioning. Then there's admin driven, which is basically somebody manually doing it. One of the reasons for using Intune is application management, right? Application management. So back in the day, what people had to do was they would go to these computers and then they would install the software on the user computer. So what does that mean? That means you need a person to be doing that. You need manpower to be doing that, and all the challenges that are faced, right? Or you're gonna have to make the employee do that work, which in most cases is not efficient. So with Intune, as soon as the device is enrolled, we do know what sort of applications that the company uses. So those applications are then automatically installed on the device, right? And also there are other applications we don't need to be on the device. Those applications can be uninstalled automatically from the device, right? So basically Intune can do application management, and this is one of the best reasons why people go to use an MDM solution, because I can install all the applications that I would need that computer to have or phone to have in a second, right, in the background, and I don't need to worry about it. And I can track the installation and everything in Intune. As soon as there's a problem, then we can address it. Okay. Now that's what it is. That's Intune. That's what we're going to be doing. Everything that I was explaining. Again, feed your knowledge by also finding some more information on Intune administration. It's a very good topic and a very good skill to have, right? It was one of the skills that I had in the beginning and really helped me, because most companies are looking for this because of these two things. Compliance is knocking on the door. They need someone to make sure their things is compliant. Not only compliance, but security-wise. You can see this is a foolproof idea that we can check the device to see if it belongs to the person. And not only can we check the device, but we can also check if the device is secure. And if it is not secure, then we make sure it is secure. And if it is now secure, then we can install applications that the company uses. And once that is said, then we can trust the company data to be on that computer. All right, no problem. Let's now meet in the next cookbook that we're going to be actually doing hands-on.